Hi, my name is Jonathan, and this is a level 1.5 bowspring practice entitled Chockers. Chockers is an Australian term meaning chock-a-block, and chock-a-block means that you just do a lot of something, and in this case, it'll be a lot of postures using blocks as props. When I began yoga, it was in the Ashtanga system, and I had a teacher who was very good actually, who would come around and remind me every time. She'd say, "Jonathan, time to sit on your blankets." And it wasn't one blanket or two blankets or even three blankets. I think I was stacked up on like 4 or 5 blankets, and I felt so incompetent compared to the rest of the students around me. It was like I was on a crutch, but in reality, she was just supporting my practice, because if I didn't sit on something, I would have ended up in this rounded position and strained my back or hip or knee. And I'm a big believer that we can use props to propel the practice, to move forward. So with class today, there'll be oftentimes that you need 2 blocks. So if you don't have blocks, maybe find some sturdy books, or you can go out and chop down a tree and create your own blocks. But we'll set the blocks in 3 different heights. There's the low height, then there's the medium height, and then finally the highest position. So let's begin in hero's pose, where you sit in between your feet but place a block in between. Personally, I like to go into the medium height just to give a little bit extra support. To go on the highest setting might be a little bit unstable because the block can just tip forward or back very easily. But you're also welcome to place the block on the lowest setting. Then bring your fingertips and dome hands at the end of your thighs. Close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, turn inward to your breath and just recognize how the block offers you support. And for many people, asking for support, asking for help is one of the most difficult things to do. To recognize that we can't do it all ourselves. And when we finally break through and ask for that help, commonly the issue, the problem is resolved much quicker. So being open to the idea that using a prop is not a crutch. It does not make you less powerful, but the opposite. That it can make you more powerful, lighter, stronger. On your next inhale, reach your arms forward in front of you, push your arms straight, then lift your hips up away from the prop. Touch your fingertips down in front of you, go dome to bright. Then as you lift your hips up, reach back with your left hand, grab your block and place it to the edge of your mat, and place the other block as well. So your blocks are at the lowest setting possible in all fours position. I have a student who comes to class regularly with me in Victoria, BC, Canada, and he's an acrobat, and he practices a lot of postures in this position, or even on the second highest setting as well, the medium height. And in the performances he does, he has these canes that are about that high off the ground, and then wooden blocks, and he can do incredible versions of handstand and one-armed handstand. But in yoga class, he finds it difficult to just be hands on the ground. So when your hands are on a block, you can curl your fingers around the block just to create more strength, tone, and engagement in your arms. So here in all fours, curling your fingers around the block, push your arms straight until your rib cage lifts higher away from the floor. With your toes pointing back behind you, press the tops of your feet down, the tops of your toenails down until you lift the front ankles. And push your knees forward to move your hips back, and push your knees out to the sides. Then move your hips back even further into spring load position. Press down with your hands and then imagine pulling your blocks towards your knees. If you're on a slippery surface, you'd actually pull the blocks to the knees, but just imagine that action. Create it, but don't actually pull it, and then move your rib cage forward as you do that. A benefit of the blocks is it gives you the advantage of being able to pull towards the back side of the mat in that direction here in all fours. Then tuck your toes under, keep the spring load position, knees push out, glutes lift, and then push down with your hands, lift up into crouching cat position. Have your shoulders over your wrists, so you're not pushing the blocks forward like you might in downward facing dog. And with your feet as wide as your mat, bend your knees subtly to tilt your sit bones high into the air. Push your arms all the way to straight and keep your rib cage lifted. Gaze between your hands. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Placing your hands on two blocks, for anyone if they're used to downward facing dog, they'll likely come more into crouching cat position just because it's actually quite difficult to be on downward facing dog because the blocks will slide forward. Keep your rib cage lifted, and on your next exhale, slowly lower your knees down to the floor, all fours position, and point your toes. Then on an inhale, lean over to the right and lift your left leg out to the side. From here, you can reposition your left block and put it into the medium height, just so it's slightly higher than your right one. Push your left knee forward and sit your hips back towards your right heel. Tip your right ear to your right shoulder. Push your arms straight and make yourself light. Then lower your knee down. Go back to the medium height or the low height on the left block, and then lift your right leg out to the side and medium height for the right hand block. Pull the right knee forward, sit your hips back. Push your hands down and try to pull your blocks towards the back edge of your mat. As you do that, move your rib cage forward, move the crown of your head forward. Then lower your knee, return back to the lowest setting, tuck your toes, lift your knees, rise back up, crouching cat position. In crouching cat position, gazing forward and slowly stepping foot by foot to come to a standing forward fold. This is a great position to come into the highest setting with the blocks. Stacking the blocks up high, keep your feet separated and bend your knees. And with your knees bent, lean forward into your blocks, push your arms straight and make your rib cage light. Then turn your knees in slightly to encourage the inner thighs to move back further and your low back to go in. Use your blocks to pull your rib cage forward. And one way to do that is even to tilt the top end of the blocks forward so you can dig into the mat a little bit more. So when you pull your blocks towards your feet, you're actually moving your rib cage forward. Then push your knees out to the sides, feel your glutes lift and start to work your legs a little straighter, a little straighter. And at this point, my legs are shaking so much I'm worried that they're going to actually fall off of my body. Okay, and then put the blocks down to the medium height, and on an inhale, slowly rise up. Recovery position, fingertips to the middle of your thighs, soft bend to your knees, and then inhale into earth. Gaze to the horizon, curl your fingers into seed hands. So the hands are soft and delicate, but you can maintain strength and firmness in your arms. Turn the eyes of the elbows, the inside of the elbows, to face each other. Push your arms straight. Fill into your upper back. Energetically pull your hands down and broaden through your chest and the sides of your rib cage. Then Bend your elbows, cup the back of your head, ecstasy arms position. Pull with your hands to make your upper back broad. Push your head back into your hands and arc over to the right. As you arc to the right, keep your knees bent, turn your knees in, move your groins down and back, and then lean over to the side. Inhale and come back up, and go over the other way. Lean over to the left. As you lean to the left, lift your chin out of your chest, move your hips back, push your knees out, lift your glutes, and lift through the right side rib cage. Inhale, come all the way back up. Reach your arms in front of you. Then weight your right foot, lift your left heel. Dig your foot forward to push your hips back. Drag your foot back to lift the foot into the air. Hold the outside of your knee right hand and cup the back of your head left. Hug your elbow into your nose. Push your knee into your hand. Bend your right knee. If balancing is tricky, you can always use a block to prop your foot up onto to then twist over to the side. The benefit of a block, although it seems like it's a crutch for stabilization and a balance, is that you can then push your foot down and pull the foot back. So in fact, you can engage your leg easier, which then makes it harder. Easier becomes harder, clear becomes color, night becomes day. I have no idea where I'm going with this. Turn back to center, reach your arms forward, and then switch. Left foot down, lift your right heel, push your foot forward, pull your foot back, lift your foot into the air, hold your knee right knee, left hand, and cup the back of your head left. Again, option to put the foot on the block at the second highest setting. Knees forward, twist over towards the right. Even though you're propping your foot up, it gives you the option to even close your eyes and test your balance another way. Closing your eyes when you're literally on one foot is borderline impossible. And it's fun just to play around, fun to be challenged to the point where you fall over just a little bit, just a little bit. And turn back to center, arms in front of you. Then bend your elbows and Hercules clasp your hands. So cross the hands and hook your fingers. Place your thumbs over your ring finger. Bring your hands low to the height of your navel. So when you pull your hands apart, you can broaden through your upper back without lifting your shoulders up or firing your traps too much. Then weight your right foot, drag your left, and slowly step your foot back, turn your right foot in, wide-legged standing position. Bend your knees forward, turn your knees in to move your hips back, then reach the arms in front of you, bend your elbows, cup the back of your head. With your elbows pointing forward, keep your hips moving back and lift evenly through the wrists and the elbows as you rise up high. Then once you've lifted to your maximum, rib cage light, hips heavy, start to lean back. Open your throat, open your teeth, breathe through your mouth. Then on your next exhale, hinge forward at your hips till you come more to a halfway lift position. And this is a pose I almost always use blocks on, and I'll put it on the highest setting, especially for those with very tight hamstrings. So it gives you the opportunity to bend the knees and rise up high enough that your shoulders are a little bit higher than your hips. Then a neat thing about just the position of your hands and the blocks to the mat when you're facing this sideways is that you can hook the blocks to the edge of the mat if it's a thick mat. If it's one of those travel mats with 1 millimeter, you're probably not going to be able to do that. Bend your knees forward and then pull your blocks back towards your feet so it's against the edge of your mat, and use that as leverage to move your rib cage forward. And keep the sit bones lifting up by pushing your knees out. And then one-armed version, cup the back of your head, right hand, push your head into your hand, reach your elbow forward, but keep the pull back with the left hand on the block. And then switch right hand down, pull the block back, cup the back of your head left, reach your forearm forward, move your hips back, open your mouth, breathe through your mouth. And then hand back to the block, turn your right foot forward in preparation for side coil position. Just place the blocks to the two ends of the mat. Then right forearm to your thigh and cup the back of your head with your left hand. Turn your back foot in a little bit more so the knee turns in and you can broaden and widen your left glute. Then tilt your right ear towards your right shoulder, lift the left side rib cage. Sit a little bit lower, reach the elbow forward. Then option to use the block, and this is where you take the hand behind you. Not just behind your foot, but even further than behind your foot. So out onto maybe the wood or the floor, the carpet, the turf, the grass, wherever you're practicing. And lean back, but at the same time bend your knees and sit your hips back towards your left heel. So you can curl and lean way back. Allow yourself to pulse. So inhale and move the ribcage forward. Exhale, sit your hips back. A few more like that. Inhale and exhale. Then keep hold of the block. Bring the block forward in front of your right foot about 30-40 centimeters and rise up into bowspring half moon. So giving yourself the advantage, being up on the block to be a bit higher, place your left hand to your left knee, push your knee forward, move your hips back. Keep your right knee bent and move your outer thigh back, lift your knee higher, then hold on to your foot and use this sugarcane variation of half moon pose to transition all the way up into dancer's position. This is where we're getting more into the level 1.5 territory as opposed to level 1. Staying here, keep your right knee bent, move your hips back, pull down with your right hand, lift up through your rib cage. Then using the blocks as a prop here, even in dancer's pose, rebound 5 times, which means bow forward, tap the block, and come back up. And just using the block so you don't have to go all the way down. You can go just a little bit of the way down. Okay, and then once 5 are complete, place your hands down and hitch kick. Switch from one foot to the other. Up and down, or even a little bit side to side. And then move back, crouching cat position, but re-grab your blocks and place them in the lowest setting underneath your hands. In crouching cat, bend the knees a little bit, tilt your sit bones up. With your arms straight, fill into your upper back. And with the sit bones up high, start to work the legs just a little bit straighter. Then to assist in the open leg position, move your right foot to the middle of your mat and lift your left leg out to the side. And you can, just like all fours, raise the second block, the left block, up to the medium setting. Push your left knee forward, move your hips back. Then lower your foot down, put the block back to the lowest setting, and switch. Lift your right leg out to the side. Right hand, medium setting for the block. Push your right knee forward, send your hips back. Then lower the right foot down. Turn both feet over to the left. Drop your heels to the right and twisted cat position. Tip your right ear to your right shoulder. Go to the second or even the highest setting of the block so you can push down and gain leverage to lift your rib cage high. Push down with your left hand and stretch through the left side body. Then lowest setting left, lift your heels and switch twisted cat, other side. Legs go to the right, ear drops to the left shoulder, second or third setting for the height, medium or high, and push down, stretch out through the right side body, sit your hips down and back. Turn back to center, lift your heels, hands over top the blocks. This is a useful one I do quite a bit to practice cat burglar, because it just gives your arms a longer length so that when you're hopping it's just a little bit easier, it can be lighter. So hop forward and back about 5 times, making sure that blocks are stable on your mat. I just find this so much easier than when the hands are on the ground. Then, standing forward fold, put your blocks at the highest setting, and then slightly in front of you, about 30-40 centimeters, and just off of the mat on each side. Inhale, rise up, recovery position. And in recovery position, push your knees forward, move your groins down and back, and then reach the arms in front of you. Bend your elbows, ecstasy position, crescent over towards the right. Same thing as before, except this time, lift your left leg out to the side. As you lift the left leg out to the side, option to take your right hand down, start to hinge and tilt a little bit like half moon, but with the hand more to the side of your foot than in front of the foot. Keep your left knee forward and then twist, tilt the top of your head down into a position called blue moon pose. Blue moon can eventually move into cascade, where both hands go down and there's a full rotation of your torso from right to left. Bring your left leg lower to lift your right arm and torso back up. Cup the back of your head, both hands. Then arc over towards the left. As you arc to the left, lift your right leg out to the side. Bend your knee forward, sit your hips back, tilt all the way over, then bring your left hand down. Nila Chandrasana, blue moon pose. Push your knees forward, send your hips back. Option to drop the head all the way down and then right arm down as well. If I had another block, I could prop my right hand up with that. Tilt, 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 and turn the torso more forward. Bring the right foot down to lift the torso back up. Hercules clasp, the non-dominant way. Clasping your hands, pull your hands actively apart, broaden through your upper back. Then weight your left foot, dig, drag right, and slowly step back. This time, keep your left foot pointing forward, turn your back foot in, then tilt your torso, place your forearm to your thigh, and cup the back of your head. Side coil position, drop your ear towards your shoulder, lift the right side rib cage. Then to use the block, take the block behind you, hold on to the outside of, or take it to the outside of your mat, off the mat, and then sit back, and then lean back, lift the rib cage high. Sit back, and then lean back. Again, sit, and then lean. Then move your block forward 30-40 centimeters. Really, it's the distance between your armpit and your hip. And then push off your back foot, lift up into bowspring half moon. Bend your back knee forward into a straight arm so you can push into the knee with power. Send your hips back, open your knee slightly higher. Then hold onto the foot, sugarcane position. Use this as transition, push into your foot. Slowly rise all the way up, dancer's pose. Hand and seed, palm facing more down. Rebound 5 times. Keep your left knee bent, hinge forward, tap down, kick back, rise up. Do that again, upwards of 5 times. Staying as steady as possible. Closing your eyes would be taking it to a whole other level. Okay, then release your foot, place both hands down onto your mat, and then hitch kick. Switch from one foot to the other. I mentioned the student who uses the blocks to do handstands. It's a little bit on the scarier side. You have thick cork blocks, might be a little bit easier than the blue foam ones that I have. Okay, then move it back, crouching cat position. Lift your right foot, bring the leg forward, cross your ankle over your knee, and place your shin down in preparation of falcon pose. Use the blocks or falcon. In fact, if you have thicker blocks, go to the medium height. If you have the thinner ones, go to the lowest setting. And rest your forearms on the blocks. So it gives you the advantage of maintaining a lifted rib cage, as opposed to what can commonly happen in pigeon pose, where everything just drops really low down like that. Staying upright, push your knees forward to move your hips back, and push your knees out, lift your glutes up. Then pull your blocks towards your legs and use that to move your rib cage more forward. In transition, it can be nice to go back to the lowest setting on the blocks. Push back, crouching cat, and then cross left ankle over right. Bring your shin down at a 45-degree angle. Keep the hips high and back. Then come down, again, lowest or medium setting. And just not highest because it might not be quite stable enough. Highest is usually a good setting if you're standing, one leg, two legs, so that you have strength and stability. Here there's a position where you can really lean and put a lot of weight onto the blocks to keep your rib cage buoyant and lifted, while at the same time maintaining the indentation in your low back. Notice as you push the knees out to the sides, there's a corresponding lift of the gluteal muscles. Next pose will be a one block position. Bring your right elbow down, right forearm down, and then put your block in the lowest setting. Have it wide and curl your fingers around the front edge of your block. Then tuck your back toes and move back into crouching sphinx position, which is just the bowspring variation of dolphin. Bend your knees. Lift your sit bones high up into the air and push down through your elbows. Lift your rib cage up. Move your right foot to the middle of your mat, left leg out to the side. Then pull your knee forward. Sit your hips back. And switch sides. Right leg out. then right foot down. Bring both knees down, point your toes, rise up to one hand, grab your block with the other hand, and place the block between your feet behind you. Again, just like beginning, hero's position, you can go second highest setting or the lowest setting. Place your hands, dome hands on the thighs. Fill into the upper back, broaden the rib cage left and right. Then cup the back of your head, both hands. Lift evenly through the elbows and the wrists. Use your inhale to get more expansive. Then twist over towards the left. As you twist the left, option to take your right hand to the outside of your left knee. Lift up tall. Make your rib cage swell. Swell as in getting expansive and not just someone is very swell, very nice. And turn back to center. Cup the back of your head right and twist over to the right. Left hand to the outside of your right knee. I'm making a pact right now, but the next time someone asks me, how's it going? Or for those of you who've been to Australia, it's, how you going? I'm going to respond, swell. Swell. I'll say it twice. Okay, turn back to center. Bring your hands back down, lift your hips, and place the block back to the front left of your mat. Tuck your toes under and lift up, crouching cat. In this one, just step your right foot forward into a lunge position and rise up, place both hands to your knees. So bowspring lunge, shorter stance. Lower your back heel just to hover, sit your hips back. And then place both hands in globe hands. Tilt your torso forward, hinge forward. Moving towards pyramid pose from lunge. So pyramid pose is when the right leg gets straighter and doesn't necessarily have to go all the way to straight, while maintaining the low back moving in. So notice with me, if I bring my hands all the way down, my back will start to round. So use your props, and in this case I go extreme. I do the double highest setting. You might only need one, but I find I have an advantage using the two blocks stacked on top. Move your hips back by turning your knees in, then push your knees out, lift your glutes, and as you pull your rib cage forward, work the right leg straighter. And this is about all I need to do to get a good stretch through the back of the right leg. Adding more of a twisted pyramid position, have just your left hand on the block, cup the back of your head right, keep the hips moving back, tilt your ear to your shoulder, and reach your elbow forward, stretch out long through the right side body. To transition, just rise back up, both hands in ecstasy, push off your back foot, step forward, weight your left, and step your right foot back. Place both hands in globe hands. Sit your hips back. Fill into your rib cage. Sitting towards your heel. Tilt forward. As you tilt forward, come down onto your block or stack of blocks. You can get creative. You go lowest setting, then highest setting, or highest setting, then lowest setting. If you have kids, you can start to use those ABC blocks to create your own version of prompts. I think that's a $1 million idea, would be to put something on the blocks that people could read so that they learn about yoga or bowspring. Could be the picture of the pose or the name in Sanskrit. If you do that, I deserve royalties for it, so just a reminder there. Then cup the back of your head left and twist over towards the left. Keep your hips moving back, work your left leg a little bit straighter without compromising the indentation in your low back, the power in your glutes. And then back to center. Bring your blocks back down to the side of your mat. Place your hands down. Step right foot back, then left foot back. Tuck your toes, lift your knees, turn them to the left. Reach your right arm long and use that as transition to lie onto your back. Using a prop in bridge pose is extra nice. And the more advanced version isn't propping it higher like in classical yoga. It's actually putting it on the lower setting. So if you have a thin block or a chip foam block, that'll be the advantage. And then the best block to have is no block. And by best, I don't mean best, it's just another way. Lift your hips up and then slide your block underneath the back of your pelvis. So not your low back, but just right where your top of the butt crack is. And then let your hips be heavy from there. Take your arms into chin-up bar position. And in classic bridge pose, you'd push with your feet and lift your hips up as high as possible and prop a block up to keep the hips up high. Instead, keep your belly lifted, but drop your hips down onto the block. Let the belly get full and heavy and make the pelvis dense. Then option 1 by 1 to take one leg up and more vertical, because it might not even get close to vertical. Don't lose me, leg. And then foot down and switch sides. When the tailbone isn't tucked under, this position is actually quite a stretch for the back of the leg. And foot down. Lift your hips, grab the block, and bring your pelvis back down to the floor. Keep your low back lifted. Then lift both feet and place the block maybe at the widest setting in between the shins. And then a little core work. Keep your low back slightly lifted and then just come down, tap your feet to the floor and bring the block back up. Inhale, down, and exhale up. Inhale down and exhale up. If you're not a big fan of core work, just go for 3 to 5 more. If you are a big fan, you can do maybe 1 to 500 and just press pause on the video so that you can catch up after. Okay, then grab the block, place it to the side, roll to your right, and make your way back up. In all fours, tuck the toes, turn your feet out, and then walk your hands back. Grab the block, and I go second highest setting when I sit. So sit down and position yourself in the cross-legged variation, Sukhasana, where your heels are in line with each other at the front of the pelvis and knees wide out to the side. Then dome your hands at the end of your thighs and use this position, pushing down with the fingers, to lift the rib cage up so the low back moves in and up. And I'm a good example of someone, if I didn't have the block, I'd end up in just a rounded position. To sit to finish a class would be agonizing after a few minutes. And then gaze straight forward and close your eyes. It takes a certain level of effort even to sit. And the prop in no way is a crutch. It is no way just holding you up. It's giving you the advantage to be more efficient, and in that efficiency to find more power. As you turn to your breath, find a place where the breath isn't rigid or shallow, that it's efficient. The rate with which you're breathing right now will allow you to sustain this position for several more minutes. A sprinter needs a fast breath to be able to sustain that short burst. When there's no effort, sleeping, Shavasana, assimilation pose, the breath can be longer. Use this time to find that efficient breath. Ultimately, the place in the middle, not the highest, not the lowest, but what is even. May any new level of insight propel your practice to another level. The light in me honors the light in all of you. Namaste.